visions come to me unbidden, twisting in my mind like a ribbon. I have to wonder why
Hey,
I've been given all these
y'all heard that homemade hip hop playing. So that should let you know, if you are cued into how we operate, that should let you know that it is time for another episode of the Focus LBK show. Yes, sir. It is time to Focus LBK. This is your brother, Robert Jenkins. And I believe we are coming to you today with episode, I think it's 83, I want to say. It might not be, but I think it's 83. And if it's not, there'll be a slight mismatch between the title and what I say here. But hearing that homemade hip hop reminds me that this past weekend, we saw the completion of another very successful production by the 100 Black Men of West Texas. And of course, I'm referring to Spring Fusion, or as my grandpa would say, Sprang Fusion. He, like I said, my grandpa never said anything with an ing at the end. He was a West Texas country boy. You know what I'm saying? He say Sprang Fusion. So that Sprang Fusion, the reboot, took place this April 12th, this past Saturday. And I'm telling you what, man, it was really good. It kind of started off slow. We kind of arranged it over the last, several months. The men of the 100 Black Men of West Texas. I think Dalen Flowers was heading up that committee. Shout out to Dalen. Also, Scotty Scott had his fingers in the pie. Treva Ellison helped arrange it. One of the judges, Daryl. Well, it was a team effort. I made some of the documents for it, the flyers, and had some input on certain things here and there. I'm the kind of person, I don't like to talk too much during meetings unless I got something constructive to say, but I helped out where I could. And that's cool too. I'm so glad that I got a chance to be a part of that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because over a year ago, if you look back at a couple of episodes ago on the show here, I was talking with my brother Cambrell, and also with one of the judges, one of the original killer MCs, Mr. Billy Smith, Be Fresh. He was one of the judges at this Spring Fusion iteration here, this Spring Fusion the reboot. But anyway, we were talking about a year ago. And I had said, man, I sure would like to help bring back Spring Fusion. And I'm not even sure why I said that, because I never had a chance to go to the actual original Spring Fusion, which was arranged, as I recall, or as I'm told, by a lady named Honeybee. And I think she lives in Dallas or something like that. I don't really know much about her, and I was kind of too young at the time to really go to Spring Fusion. But I heard from a lot of people that it was dope. So I actually spoke aloud and said, almost kind of a prophetic utterance, man, I would sure like to help bring that Spring Fusion back. And then sometimes when you put stuff in the air like that, I think the Lord has a way of making things happen. Because shortly after that, we had Be Fresh on the show, which y'all can see that interview, like I say, down here somewhere on the main page. I think it's still up there on the front page. And we were talking about doing exactly that, having Spring Fusion. And suddenly, we at a meeting of the 100 Black Men, it was like, hey, we should do Spring Fusion. So y'all know, I was like, yo, I'm gonna help. I'm in. Count me. I was happy to play a small part. One of the things that we did do, my company, LBK Video Solutions, we specialize in event photo and videos, and we took made some pretty dope video and made some pretty dope photos of that event. I'm gonna put a link down in the text here in the show notes so y'all can check out some of the photos. Now we're gonna try something new. I would like to offer some of those photos for y'all to purchase. And it's going to be on a gallery. So if you click on this link down here, you should be able to go to that gallery. If you see a photo that you like, it's one of yourself, if you were performing, you're one of the performers on stage, we got some good stuff. If you were there, you just some things you saw, like, for example, the 806 Big Steppers, they was jamming, I'm telling you. I'm finna go take their class. They was doing all that boot scooting and stuff. I love seeing, by the way, a side note, I love seeing brothers and sisters. How they say it, people that look like me. I love seeing people that look like me wearing cowboy boots and cowboy hats. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because that's part of our heritage too. So those 806 big steppers, we got some good shots of them. We got some good shots of all kind of stuff at the Sprang Fusion, the Reboot talent show this past April 12th. So we encourage y'all, man, peep out the film down here, but also click on that link that you're going to see and go to the gallery and check out some of the photos. And if you like them, you should be able to, they'll be up there for purchase. Now, we trying to make art here, and that's why it's for purchase. You can't just give your art away. You put your heart, soul, and mind and spirit all into what you do. And, man, we try to make some lasting, beautiful contributions. You try to go to that other side. That's what art is, when you go to the other side when you rhyme. Pearls, bringing pearls back. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're trying to do. I tell you what, I hope we succeeded. We definitely succeeded with that Sprang Fusion, the Reboot. It was dope. And as I'm sure we're going to have another one, the 100 Black Men of West Texas. I think this will likely be, it's going to be a yearly thing, I'm pretty sure. So it was pretty good. Y'all check out the media, and if you want to purchase some of those pictures, like I say, click on that link down there, which should be readily apparent which link you should click on. But yeah, we trying to offer the movie and the pictures that we made. Now, another thing, before we get into what we wanted to talk about today, which is COVID, because I feel like COVID was what I call an operation, meaning an intelligence operation or of some sort. And I'm going to tell you why I feel that way. But before we do that, I just wanted to advertise one more thing that I forgot to include in our previous What's Going On for the week of 14 April. But this right here is called a community forum to discuss the LISD bond package. And it's going to occur on April 17th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Difference Makers Fellowship. Now, LBK Video Solutions will be recording that event, and we will rebroadcast or air it hopefully on the City of Lubbock's channel and also on our platform here on Substack, the Focus LBK Show. So if you can't make it out there to the Difference Makers Fellowship at 517 North Zenith to see it in person, rest assured, we do plan to record it. We will have representation from the LISD school board, the board of trustees. I don't want to get too deep into that because I'm told there's some legal ramifications and things that may may prescribe us getting too in depth about who's going to be attending. But we will have reps from LISD there to talk to us about the LISD school bond package. Now, I did say that I was going to discuss today some things about COVID. So I know COVID is, some people consider it old news. I don't consider it old news. And the reason I don't consider it old news is because to my eyes, I'm a retired intelligence professional. And to my eyes, I saw something in the way they rolled out the whole COVID episode that let me know, or made me feel strongly anyway, that this was an occurrence that was planned in so many ways. And when I say planned, okay, first of all, y'all think, oh, well, he talking some crazy stuff. No. Have you heard of Event 201? Some of y'all, no doubt, have heard of it. If you haven't heard of it, you ought to Google it, because what it was Bill Gates and a lot of the other billionaire foundations, Johns Hopkins Hospital. Guess what? Members of the intelligence community. What's her name? Avril Haines. I think her name was Avril Haines. She was the director of national intelligence. She was along with Bill Gates and various other sponsored organizations that deal with public health. They had a tabletop exercise regarding COVID before COVID happened, right before COVID happened. Now, if you're not familiar with it, a tabletop exercise in the military, we used to have things called TTXs. TTXs is tabletop exercise. And what it would allow you to do is sit around and get all your important players on a subject in a room and game plan out what you would do if something happened. If we go to war with China, what do you think will happen? Experts all around the table sitting around giving input and helping shape policy and help shape the game plan for what happens if we go to war with China, or if there was a nuclear attack, or in this case, in the case of Event 201, the game plan that they were formulating is what would happen if there was a worldwide global pandemic of a novel coronavirus that just so happened to outbreak and cause an epidemic. What would we do? Now, in this tabletop exercise, Event 201, they had videos. You probably can still go to the website, type in Event 201 and go to it. There's hours of video. This is just leading intelligence and medical public health figures sitting around plotting and planning about what would happen if we have an outbreak of SARS-CoV-2. Now, here's the thing. They did change up some of the details. And this was, by the way, in October of 2019. Remember, COVID broke out supposedly in March or April 2020. So a few months before the actual outbreak, they sat down and had a whole tabletop exercise talking about what we gonna do if there just so happens to be a coronavirus outbreak. Now, in that tabletop exercise, as I recall, I read through the materials on the website and looked at some of the videos back in the day, back in 2020. And they said it was going to start, I think, in Brazil on a pig farm. So actually, now they're trying to say it started in China. Then they try to say Chinese wet market, some bats. But then now the supposed origin is in China at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, where they just so happen to be studying how to make coronaviruses. So I'm sorry, but I find it really interesting that you have a group of people, experts, who meet a few months before something happens and talk about that exact same thing, very thinly veiled. And then it happens a few months later. And they just so happen to have a game plan that they just recently formulated. Oh, they're so prescient. They're like one of these cases where you have a firefighter, off-duty firefighter, volunteer firefighter or something that just so happens to always show up first at the scenes of these mysterious fires that break out. That's what it smelled like to me. I ain't gonna lie. I'm just gonna tell you that's how I feel about it. You a off-duty volunteer firefighter or off-duty real firefighter, and just so happen to be a fire that you the first one at every time they break out, these mysterious fires. That's real suspicious. You only got about 1 or 2 times to do that before somebody start looking at you and saying, wait a minute, how is this dude always the first one at the crime scene, at the scene of the arson, the suspected arson? Anyway, that's what I was thinking of. Now, going back to 2019, October 2019 is when they had these tabletop exercises. Well, in December of 2019, my family and I started what we intended to be a yearly family ritual that we were going to do because our kids were grown and we have very good friends from Houston and their kids are grown and we're very tight friends, almost brothers and sisters, essentially. Very good friends of our family. The Johnson clan, y'all might have saw some pictures from last Christmas. So in 2019, we said, we are going to travel for Christmas. We're not going to sit at home and put no Christmas tree up. Our 2 families going to get together, and every Christmas we're going to go travel to some location that we all want to go to and celebrate Christmas in a new location. So 2019, we had arranged to have Christmas down in New Orleans. And boy, let me tell you, I tell you what, going to New Orleans in December is pretty nice because the crowds are manageable. It's just not as bad as during, Mardi Gras or something like that. It was really kind of dead, but not dead, but just moderate. So it wasn't too much traffic. It wasn't too many people. The streets wasn't packed. The restaurants wasn't packed. They had people, but it was a nice amount, just enough to make it festive, but not enough to make it like, oh my God, there's 1 million people in here. You know what I'm saying? So we down in New Orleans and we enjoyed it. Airbnb down there. We had a big, huge crib with like 6 bedrooms or something. I mean, boy, had New Orleans food. We enjoyed it. And we said, this was so dope. We're going to do this every Christmas. Right? So that was in obviously Christmas time frame, like the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So we get back home, and at the time we were living up in Maryland. We get back home, I guess it was the 26th or 27th, something like that. And right after we got back, get this, me and my son Nate, Mr. Nugent, as y'all know him, took ill. We had a strange little illness. As a matter of fact, it might have been the whole family. It might have been our daughter too. I can't remember now, but I know it was me and Mr. Nugent. We kind of took sick, and it wasn't no life-threatening illness. We felt tired and a little under the weather for about 3 days. And then after that, it was like, all right, we back. Well, it turns out we most likely got ill with whatever they call COVID in December 2019. The reason I say that, and this leads into the article that I saw the other day, and I knew this, by the way, at the time. That's why I say COVID was, to me, an operation. So it turns out that a group of scientists wrote a whole paper about this back in 2020, talking about how they think COVID was actually in the United States as early as September of 2019. Now, this is important because if it is true that COVID was here in September of 2019, it means that it has circulated and we didn't even notice it. And the reason, I will tell you, bottom line up front, bluff as we used to say in the military, the bottom line up front is they think COVID was here in September, as early as September 2019, because this ain't no guess game. This ain't no hypothesis. It's backed up by scientific details. They did a study. I think it was the American Red Cross blood supply. And like I said, I read this back in 2020. I was aware of this almost immediately when COVID started. According to this study, they got blood samples from the stored blood at the American Red Cross, and they ran antibody tests on it, and they discovered that out of 7,000 and something samples, about 100 of them had COVID antibodies. But get this, those 100 samples came from, I think it was like 5 or 9 states. So it wasn't isolated. COVID was already in at least 9 states, making people ill, allegedly, as early as September 2019. Now, if you look, here we go. I'm trying to get some quotes for you. This is from the Oxford Journal of Clinical Infectious Diseases. And this is a quote from the paper that I was referring to. They said, to determine if SARS-CoV-2 reactive antibodies were present in sera or blood serum prior to the first identified case in the United States on 19 January 2020, residual archived samples from 7,389 routine blood donations collected by the American Red Cross from 13 December 2019 to 17 January 2020 from donors in 9 states, California, Connecticut, Iowa, Massachusetts, Michigan, and Oregon, Rhode Island, Washington, and Wisconsin. That's across the whole United States. That's coast to coast. They found that blood from donors in 9 states, coast to coast, had we'll put it like this. They had neutralizing activity, S1 binding activity, and one had receptor binding domain ACE2 blocking activity, suggesting the presence of SARS-CoV-2 antibodies. So in other words, and the donations are with all the reactivity occurred in all 9 of those states. And these findings, their conclusion was these findings suggest that SARS-CoV-2 may have been introduced in 9 states in the United States prior to January 19 January 2020. That's huge. What that means is, okay, think about this. First of all, not too many people actually donate blood. So the fact that they only got 100 samples, that still tells me something. Because when's the last time you donated blood? I don't usually donate blood. Most people don't usually donate blood. But yet, out of 7,000 random samples from all across the United States, they found 100 of them or so that had antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, meaning they came in contact with the virus and beat it. Whether they got sick or not, we don't know. But they clearly, their body defended itself against SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, in other words. So that joker was circulating for 6 months before they told us, oh my God, the sky is falling, we all gonna die. Before they told us that, it was circulating coast to coast in the United States. And it's evidenced by the fact that archived blood samples from the American Red Cross have antibodies to SARS-CoV-2. It was floating around for months and nobody knew it. And that jives with what I saw. Because I noticed right at the outset, they said too, this is another reason I think it was an operation. I remember the original hoof and mouth disease. Y'all remember that? Y'all kind of remember that from 2001? If you're not old enough, maybe not. But it was back in England in 2001. They had hoof and mouth disease, and it was mad cow disease is what they was calling it. And you see on the news, they had the cows shaking and all that stuff, and it was supposedly just spreading amongst all the cattle. So in England, where this outbreak was, they had a guy, and his name was Neil Ferguson. He's a computer modeler. And he developed a computer model. I'm going to tie this all together. He developed a computer model that said that hundreds of thousands of cows and sheep are going to die in Britain. They're going to get infected by this hoof and mouth disease. It's going to be a terrible epidemic. And so let me just read you all the scary numbers that justified these lockdowns for COVID were based on a super computer model by Neil Ferguson. Now, he is the king of computer models that fail spectacularly. So I'm talking about his mad cow computer model. He said it was going to kill hundreds of thousands of sheep and cows. So because of that, in England, they went out and killed these cows preemptively to stop it from spreading. Sound familiar? Swine flu, bird flu right now, rather. They're killing all the chickens. That's why eggs prices are sky high. So they killed hundreds of thousands of sheep and cows, and it ended up being for no reason. So I'm going to read you this off of the quote. Imperial College epidemiologist Neil Ferguson was behind the disputed research that sparked the mass culling, that's killing, of 11 million sheep and cattle during the 2001 outbreak of foot and mouth disease. He also predicted that up to 150,000 people could die. Turns out there were fewer than 200 deaths. He said it was going to be up to 150,000 people going to die, and it was just 200 or so. In 2002, this same dude, Neil Ferguson, predicted that up to 50,000 people would likely die from exposure to BSE or mad cow disease in beef. Turns out there were only 177 deaths from it in the whole country, in the whole United Kingdom. In 2005, Ferguson predicted that up to 150 million people, 150 million, could die from bird flu. In the end, get this, 282 people in the whole world died from it between 2003 and 2009. So he said 150 million gonna die from bird flu up to, in the end, it was 282 in the whole world over 6 years. In 2009, a government estimate based on Ferguson's advice said that a reasonable worst-case scenario was that the swine flu would lead to 65,000 British deaths. But in the end, swine flu killed less than 500 people in the UK. Now, going on with this quote, last March, Ferguson admitted that his Imperial College model of the COVID-19 disease was based on an undocumented 13-year-old computer code that was intended to be used for a feared influenza pandemic rather than a coronavirus. Now, I brought that up to say this is one of the reasons that I have always felt, almost from day one, that COVID was an operation. Meaning it was a show that was put on and exaggerated to keep you afraid, to shut society down. And I'm going to read you some mass communications propaganda techniques, some of the book, a book that I'm reading called The Art of Coercion, and we'll tie this all together. So they got this guy, Neil Ferguson, right? He's a British epidemiologist. He has a faulty model. When I was doing my research, it was saying his computer model was so antiquated. It was like 13 years out of date, hadn't been kept up. And they were saying it was based on some Minecraft or like Sims video games type stuff where you build worlds and model worlds out. So it was kind of based on that. And they said it was a terrible model, clearly, because you could put the same numbers into it and get different results every time. So I realized early on, and to my satisfaction, that this guy, Neil Ferguson, whom the British government and then the West, the United States and everybody else looked at his computer model and said, oh God, Corona it's going to kill everybody. COVID it's going to lay waste to mankind. Y'all remember how they was talking. Well, this is the same guy whose model they was relying on. The guy who is orders of magnitude off in his model. His computer model is old and outdated and don't even give you the same numbers if you put it won't even give you the same answer if you put the same numbers in it. Every time you put the same numbers in, you get a different estimate. I came to the conclusion that this dude's job is to dramatically overstate numbers from so-called pandemics so that governments can have a reason to do stuff that they want to do. False flag, in other words. You can't be that wrong over and over again and still be getting awards and not be fired. By the way, he quit. This guy, Neil Ferguson, who supplied this faulty data to all the governments that based their lockdowns on this faulty data, which I would say was known faulty data. He quit. Why? Because he got caught flaunting the lockdown rules that his own model said was going to happen. That tells you something, by the way. If I keep running in saying it's something scary out here that's going to kill us all unless we do this, this, and this, and every time you see me, I'm saying you got to do this, this, and this, or we all going to die. But yet, in private, you see that I never do those things that I told you to do. Wear the mask and do this and do that, social distance. If I don't do that stuff that I keep telling you to do, because we all gonna die, but I don't do it. Yeah, I think you see where I'm going. You can reasonably infer that I don't believe what I'm saying. So this guy got caught flaunting the very lockdown rules that his jacked up bootleg computer model way over predicted the deaths from it. So he had to quit because it was like, yo, you the one told us to lock down. Your numbers said this was going to be catastrophic. And I think most people realize that, so yeah, COVID killed some people. There was some, and a lot of that, by the way, 90% of the people that died of COVID, from what I understand, died in a hospital. But almost everybody got COVID. And almost nobody, and the people that got COVID, most of them didn't die from it. Everybody, we just discussed earlier in the show how COVID was likely circulating in the United States in 2019. In fact, I may have had something like whatever it was in 2019. And it was a 3-day little cold, basically. I was tired for a few days. It was literally like 3 days. Nate too, Mr. Nugent too. So that I'm just letting y'all know why I feel like COVID was an operation. You'll hear me say that from time to time. Now, so to recap briefly, the guy whose computer model said that millions of people was going to die was totally wrong and off about it, but he's always totally wrong and off by millions on his computer models, but yet governments keep using his data, and they used it from 2001 all the way up to 2020 over various so-called pandemics to do drastic, ridiculous actions like killing millions of cows, when in fact there was actually pretty much no reason to do so. Locking the whole world down when there was pretty much no reason to do so. Based on his faulty numbers. Over and over again, always overestimating the threat and always wrong. And yet governments, for some reason, keep taking his model at face value. And then the other thing was just my observations during COVID. I don't know how many times at the company I was working for at the time that was trying to fire me over the vaccine. I don't know how many times I saw people get, oh, you came in contact with somebody with COVID. So they would send you home. And then when they would come back, I made a point to ask those people, so was you sick? Nope. Didn't get sick. Well, why did it make you go? Because I came in contact with somebody who tested positive. Or I tested positive. Well, you tested positive. Were you sick? Nope. Just got to chill at home for 10 days or whatever it was. 7 days. I think it was 10 days at one point. So I know a ton of people who tested positive for COVID or who came in contact with people who tested positive for COVID who didn't actually get sick but just had to go home for 10 days and get 10 paid days free off from work. Talking about destroying the economy. That's at the same time when COVID was supposedly going to kill 1 billion, trillion people. I noticed that all of the big hospitals in my area up there in Northern Virginia and Maryland, the big hospitals that we live near, you drive by, they had them signs. I don't know. I haven't seen it here in Lubbock, but up there they have signs that say emergency room wait time so and so minutes or whatever. Now, we had been to a couple of those. We got kids and we had a couple of situations. We went to them and it was always an hour, 90 minutes trying to be seen. During COVID, when hospitals were allegedly packed, the big hospital down the street in Virginia literally said emergency wait room, 6 minutes. 6 minutes. 6 minutes, 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. You got to throw that in there, sorry. If y'all don't know what that song is, look it up. Anyway, 6 minute wait time at an emergency room that always be an hour and a half, 2 hours. The one in Baltimore, near Baltimore, said 2 minutes. One time we drove by emergency wait room, two minutes. Then one time when we took Nate my son to the emergency room, he had a bike accident. We went in there. It wasn't nobody in the hospital. I did not see another soul in the hospital. Nowhere. Not in the wait room. There were no cars in the parking lot. We never saw it. So I'm sorry. A few things that add up to me to make me think that COVID was an operation. I'm sure there might have been something circulating. People were probably getting sick, but I think it was an operation. Yeah. And I'm going to read this to you. This is a book that I'm currently reading right now, and it's called The Science of Coercion. Communication. I just got a text when I'm trying to read. It says it's by Christopher Simpson. It's The Science of Coercion, Communications Research and Psychological Warfare, 1945 to 1960. And in this book, talking about these two gentlemen that are kind of like the fathers of psychological warfare and propaganda. And he was saying their names are Lippmann and Laswell. So Lippmann thought that persuasive communication aimed at largely disenfranchised masses became central to Lippmann's strategy for domestic government and international relations. He saw mass communications as a major source of the modern crisis and as a necessary instrument for any managing elite. So this is one of the fathers of propaganda and what you would call psychological operations, which is what I think COVID was, among other things. He was saying that mass communications can be used to manage the population, and it's a necessary tool for the elite. Now, another cat that was also one of the forefathers of propaganda and this whole mass communications to control the masses, a dude named Laswell, he was saying Laswell extended that idea from Lippmann, and he said he gave it a Machiavellian twist. He said Laswell emphasized that employing persuasive media and get this, selectively using assassinations, violence, and other coercions as means of communicating with and managing disenfranchised people. He advocated what he regarded as scientific application of persuasion and precise violence in contrast with bludgeon tactics. He said that propaganda has attained eminence as the one means of mass mobilization, which is cheaper than violence, bribery, and other possible control techniques. And this was in 1933, he wrote this. And he added that successful social and political management often depends on proper coordination of propaganda with coercion, violent or nonviolent, economic inducement, including bribery, and other techniques. Now, when you think back to COVID, the summer of love, they locked you down during COVID. They wouldn't let you see your loved ones in the hospital. They wouldn't let you leave your house, trying to make you wear masks and stuff, which Fauci just recently admitted in Congress when they was grilling him. The masks and 6 feet and all that stuff was made up. He said it just sort of appeared, wasn't based on no science. But this guy says they use assassinations, violence. Successful social and political management often depends on proper coordination of propaganda with coercion, violent or nonviolent. Economic inducement. You better get this shot. You're going to lose your job. Remember the summer of love, right when they was hitting you in the face with COVID, then George Floyd overdosed. I say overdose because I watched the whole 30 minutes of footage. There was like a 30, 40 minutes of footage, not just a little 8 minutes. When you watch the 30 minutes of footage and compare it with the fact that George Floyd pulled the same thing on a cop like a year before and almost died then, swallowed his drugs and had to be rushed to the hospital and have his stomach pumped. Did the same thing a year before. This time it just so happens he died. But remember the violence that broke out? When a man say, he said that mass mobilization is cheaper than violence, bribery, and other possible control techniques, adding that successful social and political management depends on proper coordination of propaganda with coercion. There's a deadly virus gonna get you, and you better get these shots, or else you won't be able to work, or you won't be able to do this. We won't open the society back up till everybody get a shot. Oh, y'all ain't getting shots? Y'all think it's too much? Y'all getting tired of COVID? How about we have a riot over this dude that died in the hands of the cops, and we burn stuff down all summer? Seemed like they was applying a 1-2 punch to me. I felt it at the time. I was like, this has got to be scripted. This has got to be, somebody's doing this on purpose. And then here you see the guy that wrote the blueprint, Lippmann and Laswell, talking about successful social and political management often depends on proper coordination of propaganda with coercion, violent or nonviolent, and economic inducement, including bribery. In other words, I'm trying to draw the picture for you that to me, this sounds like a playbook, just like Event 201 that I talked about at the beginning. Event 201, where they was doing a tabletop exercise about what if a virus hit, and then a virus hit 2 or 3 months later, just like what they was planning. How that seemed like it was a little too much of a coinky-dink. I don't believe in coincidences. Is it a coincidence if you own a home? Is it a coincidence that you were able to buy a home? No, you worked hard with your spouse to be able to buy a home. You kept a job, you made plans, you kept your credit good, you found a house you like, you went through the process, you got approved for a loan, you looked for the house you like, you found it, you applied for the loan, you got it, and then you bought your house. That ain't no coincidence. When you have what appears to be a process laid out, and then things seem to proceed according to that process or according to those steps, and they lead from A to Z in a predetermined looking manner, that's not a coincidence to me. Yeah. Now, some people out there will be like, you reading too much into it. Nah, man, we live this. I remember I told you I don't watch TV, and I remember, well, not too much anyway. Very little. I don't watch live TV. So when COVID hit and we had just moved to Virginia, and I found a barber, and we went over there, and they had the TV on. It was taking your temperature at the door, and everybody in there was wearing masks, and I wasn't doing none of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I walked up in there like, what in the world? And they wouldn't let me come in. You got to put on the mask. You take your temperature. I'm like, okay. And then I go in, and all I see on TV, it was like a movie. It was like a zombie movie. CNN looked like a zombie movie. The news on a zombie movie were like, look, there's an outbreak around the world of what looks like the dead are rising from the ground. That's how it felt. It felt like a movie, but it was allegedly reality. And I will say, like I say, you cannot convince me. And I remember, here's another thing, just why you can't convince me it wasn't an operation. There was a time when Trump, he was still in office the first time, and he said this virus looks like it came from China, and the Democrat Party, Nancy Pelosi and all them cats, said, that's racist. You blaming this on China? And they said, we ain't gonna take this vaccine if Trump make it. But then they realized, oh, actually we can use this for a lot of stuff. And then the summer of love, and then all the stuff, and then the vaccine mandates, and then they loved the vaccine after that. And the funny thing is, from what I'm told, the people that took the vaccine broke down in the camps. So a lot of liberals and leftists and Democrats took it, and a lot of people on the right didn't want to take it or didn't take it, even though Trump was the father of the vaccine, so-called. That right there tells you something too. They was using this as a political football from day one. That's racist, saying it came from China. Wait a minute. Now that's the official story that it came from China. We ain't taking Trump vaccine. Wait a minute. Actually, y'all all took Trump vaccine on the left. Or at least a big majority of them seem to have taken it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I might be way off base because I tell you what, I have learned to trust my thinking ability and my instincts. And I've learned that I like to read and take in information is the best way to make decisions about things. And from day one, COVID was setting off alarm bells in my mind. Like, yo, I don't know about this, man. I feel like they pulling the wool over our eyes on a lot of stuff. Especially because this dude named Neil Ferguson, who is always wrong with his predictions, is the one making the predictions saying trillions of people are going to die and the whole universe going to be extinct. I'm exaggerating slightly, but not much. I had been following him since 2001 when he was catastrophically wrong and killed millions of sheep based on his, they killed millions of sheep and cows based on his faulty model. And it happened over and over again. He's always wrong, but yet they always keep taking his word for it. And that's who we shut society down on. The Brits did it, and then we did it. Yeah, I feel like we got played on that. And I feel like they try to make everything just like that. They're talking about measles now, acting like measles is not a harmless childhood disease. Now, it may not be as harmless as it used to be because we've, as I understand it, we've taken so many vaccines that we may have destroyed our body's natural ability to fight these things. We've replaced our God-given ability to fight with manufactured substandard immunity. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. It's just I listen to a lot of doctors on podcasts and stuff like that. I listen to a lot of health experts, and these are some of the things they're thinking about. So, of course, you know, when I listen to it, it seems to make a lot of sense to me. But anyway, I think I have hit the nail on the head as about as close as I can get to hitting it on the head. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully it's some food for thought. Some of y'all might think seriously about this. Some of y'all might just think I'm crazy, and that's all good. Let me know what you think down here in the comments. And, yo, I think at this point, we better start playing that music too, because we're going to step on out the door. LBK, it was a pleasure talking with y'all. It's a pleasure mixing and mingling with y'all out at the Sprang Fusion. And don't forget about that bond discussion coming up with members of the LISD school board. That's going to be on the 17th, 6 to 7:30 at the Difference Makers Fellowship. Hopefully we'll see y'all out there. And if you miss it, tune in right here. We should have it playing live and in color. All right, y'all take it easy. Peace.
Inner visions come to me unbidden, twisting in my mind like a ribbon.